So I'm so happy to be here with you boys.
It's great to have you as
Monday.
our anchor, Faye.
Yeah.
FayWHAT?
FayWHAT? Filling in for the unfillable,
Right. Oh.
Mr. Al Ferguson. So let's try not to mess it up. I was going to use
Did he
another
go
word,
away
but
after all? Did he go on vacation?
No.
Stayed?
Nope. He just probably had a great time last night. I was like, you know what, Faye? You didn't do anything. You're a lesbian, right? All right, take over the show.
You stayed in.
You went to a tea dance yesterday or something.
I did. I did. Gotta represent. All right, let's have an awesome show. I'm so happy that you boys are here with me. Hi, and welcome to Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening news show. It's time to queer up the news. It's 8 p.m. Monday, June 28th, the 52nd anniversary of the Stonewall riots, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Thank you so much for joining Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only live, unedited LGBTQ plus evening news show. So whatever happens here, you will see it. Queer News Tonight is supported by viewers like you. We are part of the Happening Out television network, Hotspots Magazine, and We Make Events. Hotspots is celebrating 35 years of the LGBTQ plus experience. Merged, we bring you the best of LGBTQ plus news, entertainment, and support of our LGBTQ plus community.
That's right, Manny. This evening, we bring you the news of and perspective representing the LGBTQ plus community from South Florida, America, and across our planet. I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, FayWHAT, filling in for Mr. Al Ferguson. Let's welcome our first anchor, Dale Stine. He received a master's degree from world-famous Juilliard School. He is a well-known photographer and has been featured in innumerable magazine cover, feature spreads, CD covers, and websites. Dale is also famous for the photographs of internationally acclaimed DJs, producers, drag personas, politicos, business people, and entertainers. He is currently the director of music ministry at Unity on the Bay. He's also moderator of South Florida's largest LGBTQ plus Facebook group, Miami Gay List. Yeah, I know you guys are on that one. Welcome, Dale.
Thank you, Faye. It's great to be here. Great. So let's welcome anchor Manny Simone. He teaches voice and piano. He is a performer, musician, and is currently a correspondent and writer for Hotspots Magazine. He was previously news anchor for South Florida Gay News and Wilton Live. He also worked for the Broward Center for the Performing Arts and is also a singer and section leader with the Master Chorale of South Florida. Manny has worked and volunteered for Slow Burn Theater Company, Latino Salud, and Deliver the Dream. Good evening, Manny.
Thank you so much. Let's welcome anchor Scott Galvin. Scott is the executive director of Safe Schools South Florida, a nonprofit focusing on providing safe space for LGBTQ youth. He is also a member of the North Miami City Council. First elected in 1999, he is one of the longest-serving openly LGBTQ legislators in the state of Florida. HIV awareness is an important cause for Scott, so he also serves on the board of directors for the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, a global nonprofit organization providing cutting-edge medicine and advocacy to more than 2 million people in over 40 countries. Scott volunteers with the Florida LGBTQ Democratic Caucus to network other openly gay elected officials from Tallahassee to Orlando to Key West. Please welcome Scott.
You're a busy man, Scott.
I know, that cut down on that bio. Let's welcome anchor Orlando Gonzales. He's the executive director for SAVE, Safeguarding American Values for Everyone. Recognized as South Florida's longest serving organization dedicated to protecting people who are LGBTQ against discrimination. In his current role, Orlando works to advance SAVE's mission to promote, protect, and defend equality for LGBTQ people in South Florida. With public service always being an integral part of his life, he has also served on the Board of Trustees for the Point Foundation and has been an active alum of Georgetown University and of the National Urban Fellows Program. Good evening, Orlando.
Thank you, Scott. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Monday, June 28th.
So let's begin with queering up breaking queer news. In a win for transgender students, Supreme Court refuses to hear bathroom case. High school can be challenging enough for students, but especially for transgender teenagers. Gavin Grimm of Virginia had begun transitioning to male during his freshman year. Initially, his principal approved him to use the boys' bathroom, but the school board changed their minds and their policy to stop that. Gavin sued, and after he won his case in appeals court, the case was then sent to the Supreme Court. This morning, on the anniversary of the Stonewall riots, the Supreme Court announced that it would not hear the case, upholding Gavin's victory in the lower courts and securing the right of students to use the bathroom of their true gender instead of the one assigned at birth.
This is a big win. I think one of the things that happened this morning is that there was confusion because the headline said Supreme Court rejects LGBT case. People thought, is this a loss for us? But it really is a win, and that's to be celebrated.
It's fantastic. I mean, you know, it's just an important time. The transgender community really needs every win.
Yes.
I mean, because right now they are being slammed in every state, in almost every state. Well, you would know how many states.
Absolutely.
Orlando.
You're right.
So even every small win is a big win.
Yep. And having a young person like that willing to put themselves out there in that way, that's not easy for an adult to do, but a person of that age should be in the spotlight, to be in the spotlight like that, I think is extremely brave, and, more power to Gavin.
Very courageous.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, too, that the Supreme Court continues to be not as conservative sometimes as everybody thought they were going to be with this
Yes.
6-3 majority.
Expect them to be, yeah.
Right. There is
Exactly
a lot more flexibility there on some of these issues, so that's really good to see.
Listen, as someone that was 6 feet tall at age 10, okay, I can tell you that going to school is tough enough, and the challenges that come with being bullied and all that kind of stuff is not easy, so these kind of bills make life even harder for students. So like Dale said, a win is a win, I'll take it. Next, let's queer up the road to Stonewall. Queer News Tonight celebrates the 52nd anniversary of Stonewall. Watch this.
If any one of you have let yourself become involved with an adult homosexual and you're doing this on a regular basis, you better stop quick, because this is one thing you cannot get away with, and the rest of your life will be a living hell.
For reasons that will always remain mysterious, it's the Stonewall riots that became the symbolic riots, which inaugurated what we call the modern gay rights movement. It's almost impossible for young gay people today to understand what it was like back then. The reason why so many gay men went to Stonewall was that it was pretty much the only dancing bar in town. But as soon as the lights went on, that was the signal. Stop at once. Because what would happen would be unannounced police raids. The police would often just barrel through, throw customers, throw them, push them against the side of the wall, march back and forth through the bar, spreading terror. That kind of message you internalize. There were only something like 5 or 6 cops. But this time, instead of the gay people in the bar freezing, somebody started to fight back, and that very quickly spread. So the police, themselves now frightened, took refuge inside of Stonewall. By this time, the mob outside was howling for blood, for revenge. And so it went. There were at least 3 nights over that 6-night period in which there were massive demonstrations. And the Stonewall riots became immediately symbolic.
It was a brick, it was a shoe, it was a shot glass. It was Marsha P. Johnson. It was Sylvia Rivera. It was Stormy Delavery. 52 years later, wow, even the people who were there can't agree on exactly what happened. All we know for sure is that the events at the grungy Stonewall Inn galvanized our community like no other event in the gay rights movement had. Out of the smashed glasses and discarded eyelashes of that night rose the gay liberation movement, a combined effort by members of all aspects of the LGBTQ plus community to bring visibility to our issues. And the first pride parades in 1970 in New York, San Francisco, and LA.
Time goes by really fast. It's amazing to think it's only been 52 years and how far the cause has advanced in that relatively short period of time.
You know, when I'm in New York City, I always make it a point to walk by the inn, and I'm always sort of in awe of like the history that is there. But I really want to praise and uplift former President Barack Obama, who declared the inn a national landmark, and so securing its place in history and making sure that people learn about it.
Yeah.
I love that interview also. I mean, it's just, and then seeing the footage, it's like you think, oh my God, I can't believe that's actually happening.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet, worse is happening in other countries, of course, as we know.
Right.
So it's just mind-boggling. It's really eye-opening.
Yeah, I lived in New York City for over 10 years, and I would sit in that bar sometimes just by myself and just kind of sit there quietly and just to
Take
kind
it
of,
in.
you know, to
Take it
ruminate
in.
on that, if I thought I was even able to do that and to do that comfortably. And also, I was just going to say, we always forget that it was, a lot of people credit a person of color who was queer or possibly trans as the starter of this entire movement. So we really, we owe a lot to that community as
Yeah,
well.
we really do owe a lot. And to all the young LGBTQ plus, you've got to know your history. Make sure you know what Pride's all about. This is what Pride is about. It's not just about dancing and having a great time. Of course, we can do that on any day, but it's the history. It's how we got here. Was it a shoe? Was it a glass? Was it an eyelash? Who cares? But we stood up, and it was time to do so. I just can't believe it's only been 52 years.
Now, we queer up entertainment. Disney finally gets super gay. Is it too late? Let's watch this.
If you were like me as a kid, you've always been a fan of the Disney classics. Maybe you imagine two princes or princesses singing to one another. We see you. You are worthy. This is me. You're not ready for it.
Please welcome.
Disney has a long and turbulent history with the LGBTQ plus community. Characters often just make token appearances or are villains. Love, Victor was moved from Disney Plus to Hulu when Disney decided the gay teen drama was too adult for families. It seems the media giant has finally decided to go all in for the LGBTQ plus community with their recent This Is Me Pride concert. Seeming to finally embrace the super gay, the event was hosted by RuPaul's Drag Race alumni Nina West and directed by Anne-Marie Place, with incredible musical performances by Alex Newell, Dee Capella, Frankie Rodriguez and Joe Serafini, Heyday Kiyoko, Jackie Cox, Jesse James Keitel, Kermit the Frog, Michael James Scott, Todrick Hall, and Nina West. Whew. But is it too late to make up for decades of tokenism?
I mean, I think Disney is the most closeted organization that I have ever seen in my life. Disney, to me, was one of the gayest things that I have ever seen. And so the fact that they're finally admitting it, I'm proud that Disney's coming out of the closet. I mean, I grew up on these, like, Aladdin and Lion King, and like the little gay boy in me wanted to be a little princess so bad. And so, I mean, these are my first introduction to musicals and, into this type of animation. And, and there's gay days at Disney. I mean, we've all been ready for Disney to come out. I think Disney's finally ready to come out.
It's like Queen Latifah coming out. Like, we're
Right,
already
right.
told you we're gay.
Oh, really, girl. Right. Really, girl.
But I think we have to give them credit for having been so quietly supportive for years, because there have been plenty of corporations that have been openly antagonistic. So even though we all knew Disney was, they knew it too, and they were quietly supporting.
Just like humans, just like individuals, we're all entitled to our process, right? So Disney's arrived and we welcome them. So it's
It is a corporate process.
That's right.
I just love the fact that they can reach so many people. This is
Yep.
Disney, you know? I mean, it's incredible. Just like Manny had said when he was a kid, that was all he watched, that and porn, you know? So, you know,
I still watch porn in Disney movies. That hasn't changed.
okay, you know, so just think about that queer kid watching this and knowing that that Disney approves of whatever he wants to be. I think that's such a beautiful thing, you know? And This Is Me. How perfect is that song? I know I'm not the only one that you just get a tear. Like it hits your heart when you hear that song because we've all felt
It's affirming. Absolutely.
Agreed. Okay, now it is time to queer up religion. The Pope sends more mixed messages on LGBTQ plus rights. Pope Francis has sent an encouraging letter to a U.S. priest known for his ministry affirming LGBTQ Catholics, comparing his work to Jesus and God. The Pope's letter comes in the wake of more oppositional moves from the Vatican that were authorized by Francis on the topic of gay rights. And it adds to the confusion facing many LGBT Catholics about where the pontiff stands 8 years after he famously said, quote, "Who am I to judge?" Francis has frustrated many of his liberal supporters by continually speaking about gay rights in welcoming terms, while also upholding and sometimes reaffirming official church law and teachings that call LGBT acts, quote, disordered, and says a fluid idea of gender identity is not, quote, based in the truths of existence.
So to me, it sounds like the Pope is playing politics, which is understandable because sometimes you have to wait for your opportunity to advance the cause. You know, watching it from the sidelines, you think we can raise our fists and rail against the man, so to speak, all the time. But that sometimes will be contrary to where you want to go and you have to. It sounds like to me the Pope is waiting for his opportunities.
Scott, I totally agree, and it feels like it's hot and it's cold, right? Like you're going back and forth, seesawing back and forth, but I think that it is about finding the right opportunity and also bringing along an entire community of believers that are part of the Catholic faith. So it's a huge, I think, burden on one part, but on the other part, this is the first Pope that we've ever seen make any motion in the direction of support. So
I was going to say, it's not easy being Pope.
That's right.
And whenever...
And we're in Prada.
You know, and it's whenever so for example, I went to Florida State and they recently posted a pride flag, and I was shocked at the amount of vitriol that came in those comments, but the common thread was the fallback on religion, that is against God, it's against faith. And so to be in that position and have to represent that, but attempt to modernize, I mean, I admit it's a difficult place to be in.
Yep.
Well, I was brought up Catholic, right? And it's hard to go to a church that always says that you're going to hell. Right, so it's one of those things that I still have PTSD, and I have like that that abuse, that partner abuse kind of deal. So like I'll take any little bit that you give me. I'm always like, okay, you know, I don't go to a Catholic church, Unity on the Bay. I love you, you know, but I'm like, oh, I'm hoping that they would just come around and deal with it. And I'm surprised also because of the polls and the studies that have come out that more than 50% of the priests are gay. You would think that Pope Francis would come out and have some kind of standing. I don't mean come out in that way, you know. Don't be sending me hate mail, please. You know, but I mean, it's been 8 years, guys. 8 years. I just thought we'd be a little farther along there.
Next, let's queer up entertainment. YouTube's Pride-themed animated short film, Cupcake, is so cute. Ahead of their 2021 Pride event, YouTube has shared the heartwarming LGBTQ plus short film, Cupcake. According to the press release, the story of Cupcake centers on a baker who experiences a change of heart by recognizing love in its many different forms through the magical intervention of some proactive cake toppers. Cupcake, which is also a reclaimed slang word for gay men, tells this story and how, with a little bit of perspective and understanding, we can all change the world to be a more accepting and inclusive place. The story was inspired by an internal creative lead at YouTube who had a tough time finding cake toppers for his own wedding.
How cute.
I love this story, and the short is just charming beyond belief. And Andrew Jazz, who wrote the story, it's kind of a true life story, you know, because he wanted to marry his partner in 2015, and now he has he has a child. And so it's a very charming. When I was looking at it and I was reading, I saw the credits and I saw his name. I was like, oh my gosh, I photographed him. So I was very happy to see that and know that I photographed him and had a part in his life.
Say it again. And I photographed him, by the way.
My favorite part in the story is, the terms used, which is that the person had a change of heart. And when I hear that, it tells me that we have hope, right? Whenever people are called to be compassionate, to be thoughtful about the way that they think about others, there's a possibility and there's hope for converting people who may be haters or deniers of our community to really be accepting.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was super cute, and it's something that you can show anybody of all ages, which is also something that I love. As someone that I got married a couple of years ago, Dale sung at my wedding and was at my wedding, and it was hard to get a cake topper that had, I wanted the one where it's the girl that's being dragged, right? But I wanted it to be dragged by another girl, and they wouldn't make it for me, and I couldn't find one, you know? So when I read this story, I was like, oh, been there, got it.
Well, now we queer up the road to Stonewall. Trans Teen introduces President Biden to mark the return of Pride events at the White House. Watch this.
Please welcome Ashton Moda.
Thank you so much, Secretary Buttigieg, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashton Moda. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm honored to be here with you all today. I'm a 16-year-old Black Afro-Latino high school student from Lowell, Massachusetts. I also happen to be transgender. I want to thank President Biden for the protections his administration has put in place for LGBTQ+ people nationwide. While we know there's work to be done, these efforts are deeply meaningful to so many young people like me. President Biden has always stood up for his family, and I know he'll always stand up for my family too. Mr. President, thank you for having our back.
President Joe Biden hosted an LGBTQ+ Pride celebration at the White House, commemorating the return of Pride events at the White House as Trump largely ignored the important month for 3 out of the 4 years. 16-year-old Ashton Moda introduced the president at the event on Friday, June 25th, 2021, as the administration kicked off the return of Pride commemorations. Moda is a 16-year-old Afro-Latino high school student from Lowell, Massachusetts, who happens to be a transgender man.
What do you guys think?
I think it's badass to see how far the trans, movement is coming right now. I mean, one after one after one, it seems like there's been real progress. Yes, some setbacks with some of the athlete things, but that's also the fact that we're talking about trans people so often, to me, is fantastic.
I couldn't agree more. The event was exciting. It was on Friday, and leading up to it, I saw several people, taking photographs. I'm on my way to the White House. Here I go, and I'm preparing. And Bambi Salcedo, a leader in the trans Latina community, coming from Los Angeles, coming into the White House, when she posted and I saw that Ashton was going, I thought, wow, the number of trans people that will be in the White House will probably set a record than ever before. And that warmed my heart, because that is where our movement is. That is the focus of where we should be, because that is the community that's hurting the most.
Exactly.
What do you guys think about the haters? Like, there's always haters to everything. So there's Trumpsters that are saying that, okay, how perfect is it that he chose a Black boy, to represent the transgender community in this way? What do you guys think about that?
I think we should ask Nina West when she's done hosting Disney to go on the
Right.
stage. We'll put a drag queen on the stage next time.
You're saying, Faye, the haters are saying...
They're just saying that, like, oh, how convenient that you put a transgender boy of color up on the stage today to, like, continue, like, your fake love of our LGBTQ community, which is, of course, not true. But
Well, the haters are always just going to find something to hate. That's just really the way it is. And so what's not beautiful, everything is beautiful about that moment. So...
Yeah, and I think that the other part is that we're intersectional, right? Like, we are not a monolithic community. We are very diverse. There's Black people, there's Latinos, there's Asians, there's a variety, and that's what really that represents. And if the haters are going to come after us for anything, it's because they live in a homogeneous environment, really is probably where they are.
Yeah, and to have a gay transportation secretary up there with a Afro Latino person of color who is also transgendered, I mean, like, to me, that is a win. win. That is a win.
And I loved how he referred to when Biden had the address and he said, transgender community, I have your back, you know, so, and he's there to say, thank you for having our backs. It's like so real, like it really feels like he does have our backs. That's incredible. So next, let's queer up gay culture. Lesbian bars have dwindled since 1980, a Nashville owner explaining why they're needed. So in 1980, there were about 200 lesbian bars in the United States. Now only 21 remain. That's according to the Lesbian Bar Project, a campaign working to document the significance and resilience of these spaces. The Lipstick Lounge in Nashville is one of those bars that remains. When asked what need lesbian bars fill, owner Krista stopped and said, quote, I think that we still feel that need of family, of cohesiveness, of friendship and camaraderie, even if it's from everybody, from all different walks of life. It is the safe spot to go to and literally get to be who you are. And people aren't going to look at you odd. They're just going to be lovely, end quote.
I mean, this is an anomaly to me, and on our panel, I think you're going to be the one that can maybe speak to the most about this, but this is actually something that I've always wondered. We had a couple lesbian bars on the drive, and they come and they go, and they just disappear. The reasons that, my understanding of the reasons of the need for a lesbian bar seems to be the same as just any gay bar, a safe place to have inclusion, but I have seen, I've only been in South Florida 6 years now, but I have seen 2 or 3 bars come and they disappear just as quickly, and people just say that the lesbian community does not come out to support, and I can't speak on that. I even did a little research. I was like, well, maybe there's a lower percentage of lesbians out there than gay men, and the studies are a little mixed, but they actually claim that women have a higher percentage of being gay than men do. So I was like, well, it's not a population thing, so I don't have any answer as to why this happened. Faye, this is up to you.
No, I mean, you know what? It's really hard to explain because honestly, I'm a lesbian that hangs out at boy bars. I hang out with all of you, so you guys know that. So I seldom go to a lesbian bar aside from the fact that we don't have one either.
There aren't any at all in Miami.
There are none in Miami.
A single one.
There are none in Fort Lauderdale. We used to have a G-Spot, and now they closed. Love you, Lisette. And you know, it's not easy to say that our community doesn't support. We are the community that goes on big vacations, and we use all our money, and we go to Girls in Wonderland. You know what I mean? We'll go to Orlando, and we'll do Aqua Girl. We'll do weekends, but we won't support our local community bar. I don't know why. I wish things were different, Manny, but there aren't, and they're dwindling, you know, and a lot of lesbians feel that they don't feel comfortable at your boy bars, and I don't know why. I've always felt very welcomed at every single boy bar that I'm at, but something needs to change, which is why I always want to unite the L and the G, because they really need to. We all need to be united, but you understand my drift. Like, you know, there should be no reason why a Q or a T should feel weird at a boy bar.
Yep. Here's to the hung jury in Washington, D.C. I definitely was an attendee of that bar and had a few drinks there with my lesbian friends. So I miss them. I really do. And, you know, people in general say that gay bars all across the spectrum are you know, starting to go away quickly. And some say that it's because of our dating apps and whatnot. But whatever the reason is, I really miss them because I think that COVID has shown us that when we're in person, it's like the warmth and the strength of our community is much more felt. So let's do it. Let's come back to the bars.
All right, Dale, you're up, my friend.
Yeah, I got lost in that whole thing.
Dale was imagining himself a lesbian.
But I was thinking about going to the, was it the Cubby Hole in New York that you used to go?
Cubby Hole, yes.
Yeah, those days, okay. So next, let's queer up gay culture. These gorgeous photos capture the diversity of new queer photography. Photos help shape our perceptions of people, history, and the world around us. Years ago, Benjamin Wolbergs, an editor and art director living in Berlin, saw images on social media of a young queer community. The photos were open and honest, critical and self-exploratory. They strongly contrasted with Wolberg's experience growing up in a small city in southern Germany. His first interaction with the queer community didn't happen until he was an adult, moving to Berlin in 2001. Wolbergs wanted to put these queer images, so different from what he saw in the attempts of existing representation in the media, together in an anthology that would serve as a window into queer photography and life in our time.
The photographs are beautiful. I think that, again, we're a community that is intersectional, and so when you see these images, you're not looking at blonde white folks, right? Like, you're looking at people of color, you're looking at people with incredible and beautiful imperfections. The images are really just like, it makes you feel like you're part of humanity. So I love it.
I love them because they're raw and the edge is in the honesty and the authenticity. they're so vulnerable. And I was just saying this to someone yesterday. One of the most beautiful things to photograph is a vulnerability. And the vulnerability is just showing people who you are. And in those images, the people are just being seen exactly for who they are. And I love all the various sizes and colors, and it's magnificent. I love it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's something where, for people who maybe live in a more heteronormative world, like, well, what does a gay person look like? And so there are photos there that maybe are obvious due to the context or maybe something that they have on that would make them be specifically queer. But then there are pictures of just somebody, just being, and I think we need people who live in a more heteronormative lens to understand that gay people don't fit into one type of way. There are different types of gay people, and hopefully that photography can bring that to people.
We're so different. The spectrum of what we look like and what we are in the LGBTQ plus community is like a rainbow, so to speak. We just really have a little bit of everything, and I just love the beauty in these pictures. And I think my favorite part of it is just that they're not like pose,
right?
Pose. It's just like whatever they're doing. Okay, that photographer, as you know, Dale must have an incredible eye, because it was like, oh, this person's going to twirl around. I'm going to take a picture of them from the back. Random but beautiful. Right. So I loved it.
Agreed. So it is time that we are going to queer up sports. Transgender runner ruled, quote, ineligible for U.S. Olympic women's trials. Transgender athlete Cece Telfer won't be able to compete at the U.S. Olympic trials due to being ineligible. The runner had been hoping to take part in the women's 400-meter hurdles, but she didn't meet the eligibility regulation set by World Athletics for certain women's events. Had she qualified, she would have been one of the first openly transgender athletes to compete in an Olympic event. She's not able to compete in this week's trials due to guidelines set by the World Athletics in 2019, which closed off international women's events between 400 meters and a mile to athletes with testosterone levels of 5 nanomoles per liter or more, ESPN reports. Telfer would have had to have sustained lower testosterone levels for a year.
So this is really interesting, right? I think people might hear this story and think that it's just bad news, that it's a story of rejecting a transgender athlete. I want to just sort of share that this standard was a standard that's also used by the NCAA and that was created with transgender people, right? This standard was created with our people at the table, particularly transgender people. And I think that that's really important. The other thing that it signals is that there's a path forward. In the future, she can participate so long as she meets these guidelines. And so I like that there's a shared understanding that it was a standard that was co-created with the transgender people and that there's a way to be able to participate.
And I loved her response to the whole, she's just continuing to train.
That's right.
She's just laser focused. This is not even a detour. It's it's not even something to acknowledge, really. Just keep moving.
That's wonderful that she had a good attitude about it. Because I mean, she's not the only transgender athlete that we were going to have in the Olympics. The weightlifter, we did a story on her last week. Her name is Laurel Hubbard, and she's a beast. Okay, amazing what she had to do, and she passed all the preliminary studies and tests and everything that she had to do. So she'll be there representing. I feel bad for this woman that she can't do. She can't participate this time around. But if she's steadfast and she's focused and has her eye on the prize, we'll see her at the next Olympics.
That's right.
Yeah.
Not worried
She's
about
a trailblazer in her own right because she's setting the bar forward for future competition.
Yep.
There you go.
So now let's queer up the world. Pride parades marred by clashes and arrests in Turkey. Violence broke out in Istanbul this year as residents attempted to celebrate Pride. Pride parades have been banned in Istanbul since 2014. And protesters had gathered in Taksim Square for a rally. Police moved in, arresting at least 20 and firing rubber bullets into the crowd in an attempt to disperse it. At least one reporter was badly beaten while being arrested. The governor's office had refused to authorize a march, citing the protection of peace, security, general health, and morality.
The irony, right? Citing peace, right? Well, there was a big upheaval in which it was not peaceful. I think that what I'd love to see one day is when the government takes a position and that the police say, don't put this in our hands. Don't make us the people who have to go out into the community and shoot rubber bullets and hit people with batons. I think that the police need to take a stand against the violence.
Yeah. When I see an article like this, it definitely reminds me of how brave people are. Sometimes I think I'm brave for wearing a pride shirt in Publix. And when I see something like this, like I personally need reminders that, you know, we take advantage of the rights that we have in this country. Of course, we still need to improve. We all know that. But we're able to, you know, to live in a level of peace that many other countries
Just
obviously, can't. And so personally, I need reminders like this to remind myself of the gratitude and to remind myself of how brave people are out there fighting the fight every day.
Well, I mean, this goes back to me to the story we did a little earlier on Stonewall. This was America 50 years ago, and it took people being dedicated and not just going home and getting on their phone. It took constant coming back to you know, to the situations, being willing to be beaten, being willing to be arrested. The people of Istanbul and other parts of the world are now going to have to be diligent in sticking with this.
Yeah. Do you think, Dale?
I don't know. It's also, that being said, you're dealing with governments that are, it's a very tough issue.
Well, it was also an unauthorized march. Let's put that out there. So they didn't have permission to have this march. And, you know, again, kudos to the people who were like, screw it. Love is love. I'm going to be out there no matter what. Hit me with whatever you got. I'm here to protest and show that I'm just as important as anybody else. You know, but just like you guys touched on, it still reminds you of how far some places have to go. Not far from there, over the weekend, there were parades everywhere. Rome had Italy, you know, Italy. There was a ton of, Tel Aviv had parades as well. Unfortunately, we're talking about this one because of the violence that you know, ended up at the end. But it still makes me sad, though, that our community was out there getting hurt in that way.
Absolutely. Let's queer up Pulse National Memorial. Joe Biden has officially made Pulse Nightclub a national memorial. President Joe Biden signed new legislation that has officially named Orlando's Pulse Nightclub a national memorial. Surrounded by LGBTQ plus politicians and activists, Joe Biden signed the document and gave an emotional speech honoring the victims of the 2016 mass shooting. He explained, quote, "We are thankful that members of the US House and Senate passed the bills unanimously. It's so meaningful to everyone here, especially the families of the 49 survivors, first responders, and all the lives affected, that our federal government recognizes the depth of the tragedy of Pulse. It's so clear and lasting message to the LGBTQ plus community that what happened at Pulse matters and will never be forgotten for future generations, and that we will always outlove hate," end quote.
I'd like to just first say, you go, Joe, because that, you know, story after story, we're seeing how he's really stepping up, not just for the LGBTQ people, but all disenfranchised people. And so this is another story that just makes me feel very warm and cozy about something that was not at all warm and cozy, as we know.
Can you believe it's been 5 years?
I know.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me too, President Biden waited for a lifetime, almost literally, to have become president of this country, and it's almost as if he's not going to waste any time whatsoever. He is going to push forward, and you know, resistance be damned. He's going to make sure that things advance.
Absolutely. And one of the things when I think about Pulse is, to me, not only does it remind us of the journey and the progress still to be made by the LGBTQ community, but it also reminds me very clearly about where we are on gun violence in our country, right? This is, we're living under a current generation of youth who gun violence is normalized in their lives. And so these two issues, I think, are enormous, and they're part of the big lift that we have to do. But I think Joe Biden's gonna help us out there. And I think that we're gonna make some advancements in making sure that we can be a better country.
And can you believe it? Republicans and Democrats all agreeing on something? Like nobody even looking. Even Marco Rubio was like, yeah, sure, let's do this. I mean, in that voice.
That was a good impersonation. I knew it was him.
That's the voice he's using, behind closed doors. Okay, so those are our queer headlines for today. So let's catch up on the LGBTQ plus news surrounding COVID-19 with our special segment called Quarantine Quickies.
Queer News Tonight has been LGBTQ plus America's most important news source on the pandemic, as we have reported on coronavirus on every news broadcast since January 6th of 2020.
Tonight, we report the devastating effect coronavirus has had on the American and worldwide LGBTQ plus communities. You know, in total cases and deaths, all have been affected.
But we also provide hope of a new light at the end of this long tunnel. First, we report that as of tonight, more than 2,414,000 LGBTQ plus Americans have contracted COVID-19.
We have watched the greatest single-year LGBTQ plus health crisis of our lifetimes. More than 43,000 LGBTQ plus Americans have died from coronavirus.
But the news is improving because as of today, more than 323 million vaccination doses have been administered in the U.S.
That is our COVID-19 news for tonight. Next, we report that Happening Out Television Network is passionate about our support for the LGBTQ plus community.
An example is Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We're broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine in supporting that partnership.
The network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ plus religious broadcast in the world, with more than 30,000 watching every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. And it's totally live.
We encourage you to tune in. Our campaign of sponsorship proudly supports Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church. Watch this.
Hi, I'm Dr. Howard Grossman. I'm the medical director for Midway Specialty Care in Wilton Manors, and I'm the medical advisor for Queer News Tonight. And Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Finally, we thank Queer News Tonight's hotel sponsor, Best Western, off I-95 in Fort Lauderdale. This is the closest and best choice to the famous Wilton Drive, and our hosts and guests stay at this LGBTQ plus ally partner. We encourage you to stay here when visiting South Florida.
That's today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates. Share this news with your friends and family.
Post this broadcast in the many groups you are a member of. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your family and friends.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television news in the world that is, quote, out of the closet and into the headlines, unquote. We need your support.
If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, FayWHAT? And on behalf of these incredible LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Dale Stine, Manny Simone, Scott Galvin, and of course, Orlando Gonzales, we will see you daily, and that means tomorrow at 8 p.m. Good night.